Compared to games like Madden or NBA Live, NBA 2K has always been very far ahead when it comes to franchise/dynasty mode. While in recent years, modes like My Career and My Team have gotten more predatory with microtransactions, My League, which became MyNBA a few years ago, has always been the best mode in NBA 2K. It didn't feature microtransactions, it allowed you to essentially do or create anything, it had every feature you would want, and they even added eras, where you could start a franchise in the past and recreate history with historic draft classes. Watch as team branding and league rules accurately update each year, with the ability to manually override anything. On the surface, this seemed like a great mode, something a lot of us would kill for in an NFL game, for example, filled to the brim with depth. However, the more you play this mode, the more it begins to show its flaws. You see, we've been giving 2K a pass for a while simply because their franchise mode had more to do than EA's, which isn't really saying much. But MyNBA is currently fundamentally broken, and I'm about to show you exactly why. I gotta give a huge shout out to Sim Gaming Network for giving me the idea for this video. He made his own video first breaking down just how broken MyNBA is in NBA 2K25, and he asked me to cover this issue to get it in front of more eyes. And hopefully 2K can do something about this. Let's dive in. The fundamental issue with MyNBA is that 2K's developers don't seem to actually play and test this mode. They're clearly more focused on My Career and My Team, since those modes directly create 2K more revenue through microtransactions, while MyNBA's deep systems go unchecked. This becomes immediately apparent when starting a new league with default settings. Players shouldn't need to spend hours tweaking sliders and settings just to get something that somewhat resembles realistic NBA gameplay and management, especially not when the game costs at least $70. 2K can add a season pass and continue adding bloat like Jake from State Farm in the city, but they can't even do the bare minimum and test their own franchise mode. Let's start with roster inflation, which might seem minor but creates a snowball effect of problems. Currently, there are 21 players that are rated 90 through 99 overall in NBA 2K25. That's fine. But there are 120 players rated between 80 and 89 overall. For perspective, the NBA has 30 teams with 5 starters each. That's 150 total starters. According to 2K's ratings, 140 out of those 150 starters are rated 80 or better. Does that sound realistic to you? Shout out again to Sim Gaming Network for bringing these exact details to my attention. For comparison, NBA 2K17 had just 63 players in the 80 to 89 range and 17 players rated 90 to 99. How did we go from 63 to 120 players in that range? Has the NBA's talent really doubled? If everyone's super, no one is. The problems compound when you start simulating seasons. There's a persistent bug where CPU teams automatically sign every draft pick unless it's financially impossible. In the real NBA, draft night is filled with trades, players getting selected by one team and immediately moved to another. But in 2K25, these CPU trades only happen if you manually sit through the entire draft. Otherwise, teams end up with 5 draft picks and they sign them all, filling their roster with mediocre players before free agency even begins. This creates a cascade of issues. Teams don't have the cap space for free agents, the CPU doesn't plan ahead, and G League players who should be in the G League are taking up valuable roster spots, while players over 80 overall are sitting in free agency. The ripple effects in free agency are devastating. Teams forget about qualifying offers they've made, make new offers to other players, then they have to renounce their original offers when they realize they don't have the roster or cap space. This leads to quality players sitting in free agency unsigned because teams have already filled their rosters with rookies and burned through their cap space. To make the game realistic, you basically have to manually control every single team to prevent them from waiving bird rights on players they should probably keep. We shouldn't have to babysit broken AI in a fully priced video game. After simulating just 3 years, the rating inflation becomes absurd. You'll find 25 players rated 90 to 99 and 150 players between 80 and 89. That's 175 players rated at least an 80 overall in a league with only 150 starting spots. Every team can have an 80 plus rated player at every starting position plus their 6th man. This breaks the economic simulation. There isn't enough money in the NBA to pay all of these good players what they're worth. Even adjusting contract sliders doesn't fix this fundamental problem. The CPU's logic and decision making is probably the worst it's ever been in NBA 2K25. Teams will stack multiple good players at one position while ignoring glaring roster holes. The whole thing just feels random, rather than like a proper simulation. And while this is the only mode in this $70 game that doesn't ask for more money through microtransactions, it's fundamentally broken and asks for your time. The features and options are there, but whoever is responsible for making sure they work properly seems absent. This even ruins the otherwise excellent Eras feature. You can't simulate ahead quickly without these issues arising. You have to manually watch every draft for trades to happen, and even then, teams will still make illogical roster decisions. The progression and free agency sliders only do so much. They can't fix the underlying problems with roster inflation and CPU logic. The G League implementation is particularly frustrating. Fictional G League players randomly shoot up to 90 overall ratings, creating unrealistic stars. Yet, if you try to use the G League properly by sending a player down for development, their morale tanks, their ratings drop, and they will refuse to sign with your team. It makes the entire G League system unusable for roster management and player development. Basic CPU roster management is worse than ever. Somehow NBA 2K12 handled this better. Every team ends up waiving good players to make room for rookies, creating a dead cap epidemic. Trade logic remains terrible. You either completely fleece the CPU or get fleeced yourself. It's very rare that a mutually beneficial trade works out. The core issue here is that while 2K keeps adding features in depth to MyNBA, the underlying logic hasn't been touched since the MyLeague days. Rather than adding new eras, 2K needs to focus on testing and fixing what's already here. They should consult with real NBA GMs or even assistants to understand cap management and CPU team building. Take-Two certainly has the money for it, and now that they are marketing the return of MyGM, there is no excuse for these issues. I investigated further and found that you can't even manually trade for drafted players during the draft, meaning if the Heat draft Bol, I can't trade for him mid-draft for upcoming picks if I'm the Nuggets, which is what happened in real life. And yet, this was possible in 2K before MyNBA, when the mode was still called MyLeague. Another minor issue is an easy option to swap best or swap worst rights during a trade. This is no longer an option, but it was in MyLeague in past 2Ks. You also still can't make injured players waivable or tradable like an NBA team could in real life. You can't extend staff contracts until they expire. Head coach offers for assistants are blocked every single time. And they got rid of the first, second, and third offensive options setting within the coaching menu. When re-signing restricted free agents during the moratorium period, if you offer a contract prior to the third day of moratorium, the game will replace that contract with a 1-year qualified offer that you cannot unselect. This issue has been present for over a half-decade now. Auto-generated draft prospects look ugly and stupid. The sim engine delivers random, sometimes very unrealistic results. These little things all add up, resulting in a franchise mode that doesn't do anything right. Until 2K addresses CPU logic, adjusts their roster ratings to be more balanced like they used to be, and actually tests this mode before shipping, MyNBA cannot reach its potential, nor can it be called the best franchise mode of all sports games. It's currently so fundamentally broken that playing multiple seasons feels pointless. And while Madden 25's franchise mode is terrible, it's at least functional. Teams don't all ruin their cap situation within 3 seasons. Yes, the NBA is more complex than the NFL when it comes to the offseason, but that's exactly why this mode needs more thorough testing and refinement. Hopefully for NBA 2K26 these issues will be fixed, but considering they have been present for years, I'm not sure the 2K devs are even aware of these issues. With so much live content to work on between the city, the season pass, my team, pro-am, etc., they likely haven't even considered further testing of MyNBA. I grew up playing sports games that focused mostly on franchise modes. It should be the core of every sports title besides gameplay. I used to give 2K a lot of credit for how deep their mode is compared to EA sports titles, and that's still true. But with underlying logic issues, a poorly constructed roster, and oblivious CPU AI, I'm not sure what NBA 2K really has going for it anymore outside of depth, but it's pointless depth. If these issues aren't fixed, I have no choice but to give NBA 2K26 a not good review. I think 2K needs to go back to the basics. Make a great playing NBA game that focuses on just that, the NBA. and make the franchise mode and offline My Career the focus. Rebuild the core, and the online game will benefit as a result too. The hyperfixation these companies have on only patching or updating or working on the online pay-to-win game modes, combined with a lack of competition, have ruined the modern sports game industry. Hopefully someone working high up at 2K actually is passionate about NBA basketball and can right this ship. But if I had to guess, 2K will continue leaving the core of MyNBA untouched, while adding more to the city and giving you more places to walk from point A to point B, because a simple menu can't manipulate you into buying a skateboard to get around faster, can it? Thanks for watching.